name is Beth Bye. I'm a state senator from West Hartford, Farmington, Burlington, and Bloomfield. And I'm here with Bye the Bye, my monthly TV show to hear what's going on in the community. With me now is Stephanie Greco from Growing Great Schools. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
It's so nice to have you. I really wanted to have you on today to let the community know all that's going on with Growing Great Schools, which is your organization. Could you start by talking to us about the organization, how it started, and what its goals are?
Sure. We started a couple of years ago with parents who wanted to bring healthy food into the schools. They were getting tired of what they saw in school lunch and processed foods, and a big part of that was the children who are on free and reduced lunches not getting this. Sometimes this is their only meal of the day, and we wanted to make sure that was a healthy meal. So it started really as a grassroots effort, and we are still very much a grassroots effort of people who are interested in getting involved. Men and women, parents, grandparents in our community in West Hartford, and even it's starting to spread because the word has gotten out about wanting to bring healthy food into the schools, getting kids more active, reducing obesity, which is a huge problem. And so we started with this idea that we can make a change, we can make a difference, and parents have dedicated their time to trying to make a difference.
That's really wonderful. Now, I was first introduced to you by an article in the Current or the Patch about the chefs come to the school. So yes. I think that's pretty neat because it's building on a strength in the community, which is our restaurants, and trying to connect that sort of skill and that resource that we have in town with the schools. So tell us about the chefs coming into the schools.
Well, we're very fortunate that several chefs are parents in West Hartford Public Schools. So Hunter Morton, who is the chef at Max Downtown, was one of the first to start coming into the schools and saying, perhaps we can make these lunches healthier if we get some chefs. And he got some of his friends who are also parents, like Scott Miller from Max Oyster Bar, and Billy Grant from Grants and Greco, and Tony Camilleri from Rizzuto's, and Adam Greenberg from Barcelona, and Dorian from Treva and Aver. They all have children in the schools except for Adam. And they said, of course we want our children to eat healthier foods. So they came into the schools, they did these chef-led tastings where kids would have the opportunity to try something new and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And the things that got a majority of thumbs up made it onto the school lunch menu. And we've seen great success that way. And they've also been instrumental in getting kids to try beans and legumes and vegetables and kale chips that they might not have tried before. And surprisingly, the kids like them.
Yeah, that's something you hear people say a lot. I haven't been a big believer in it, but, oh, you don't understand, kids won't eat that. What do you say to people saying, we've got to have this junk, chicken nuggets in the school lunch and frozen pizza, because kids won't eat healthy foods like kale chips? What do you say to that?
Well, I can say from experience that it's so refreshing to see the kids embrace this. When the chefs come into the schools and they say, try this, come and sample this, have a little taste, and the chefs walk around. I feel like we're actually standing up against the big company marketeers, the people who are going after our children to feed them food that is not healthy at all, and they're on television and they have these multi-million-dollar budgets. We can actually see change when the chefs are in the school lunchrooms making things and having them try it. So I think that's one component of it. But another piece is certainly the fact that at some points we have to be responsible parents and say, I'm sure you want to have chicken nuggets for 3 meals a day, but that's not always a healthy choice. Just like we have to say to our kids, brush your teeth, we also have to teach them to eat healthy food. I mean, it's our responsibility as parents and to be physically active.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So do you have a parent education component, or is your goal really to improve the schools improve the food available in the schools first and then move on to parent education, or are you doing both? How's it working?
We feel that in order to make change, lasting change, which is what we hope to make in our schools, we want to make change in our communities. So our goal is to create a culture of wellness. So not just the schools, but to have parents on board, because it will do no good if the one healthy meal is in the school and then they go home and they're having chips and sugary drinks. And things filled with preservatives, and not all things are bad for you that taste good. I mean, there's certainly things, you can have chips with 5 ingredients if you learn to eat them in moderation. But things with lots of chemicals and additives, we want parents to understand that these aren't always good choices.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. One thing I read once, and it has been such an easy guiding light, is to look at the ingredients, and if there are more than 5 ingredients, it's probably not good for you.
We always say that. One of the things that we say amongst ourselves, and we try to share this knowledge, is take 5. Which means take 5 minutes to take a break, stretch, move your body, and also look at the ingredients. And if there are more than 5, and there are things you can't pronounce, that's probably not that good for you.
Yeah, that's neat. That's great that you're combining things. So last month, I went to this incredible event at Hall High. 241 Sports was having activities in the gym. Growing Great Schools had food and safe driving things going on downstairs. The chefs were serving this incredible food, and there were kids from 6 months old to senior citizens, 80 years old. It was just such an unusual event. How did you pull that all together? What were the connecting pieces?
Again, this was an event to raise awareness, and I think that we really want to make a change in the community and educate food service workers. We want to educate teachers. Students spend so much of their time in school that educating teachers and providing opportunity, and it's not educating them, it's empowering them, giving them knowledge, giving them assistance and guidance and access to materials and information and support so they can make choices. And so we got together this event by Liz Devine, a teacher at Hall High School, said, oh, my class can bring students and volunteers, and local coaches came, and 241 Sports were in clinics, and all of our chefs came and prepared a meal to show people what school lunch could be. And we purposely set the price point at $5 for adults and $2 for children, so everyone would have the ability to come, have a wonderful meal prepared by local chefs, and they could experience, West Hartford Yoga was there, and Hunger Connecticut was there, and so people could really find out about opportunities to have breakfast in school, to have lunch in school, about backpack programs and summer food, access to food during the summer. So these are all key things that Growing Great Schools wants to bring to our communities, and not just West Hartford, but we've already been approached by other towns throughout Connecticut. So we really would like to see this spread, and I think make fundamental systemic changes.
Wow, that's a big commitment, but certainly being at Hall last month, you could see that there's a lot of energy.
There's so much energy.
This. Now, are the chefs donating their time and materials?
The chefs are donating their time and materials, and the restaurants have been incredibly supportive. The chefs come out, they make things. We have farmers markets twice a year, and that's another way we want to introduce families to healthy foods by offering these farmers markets at all 11 elementary schools in West
they're
Hartford.
At the schools, great.
Yes, and soon to be at the high schools and middle schools. And for example, at Charter Oak, one of our schools in West Hartford, the Hall High School students went to Charter Oak and ran the farmers market. So parents, it was at an off time and parents could have access, and our chefs make things and they donate the food, and all proceeds go back to Growing Great Schools, which then go right directly into the PTOs at all of the schools.
To work on these issues.
To work on getting salad bars in the schools, getting healthier lunches in the schools, getting facilities and things that children can use for physical activities. So Growing Great Schools recently partnered with the West Hartford Relay to offer a children's relay, and all 100% of the proceeds went back to the physical education departments at all of the schools in West Hartford.
Wow, so it's not just growing your organization, you're sort of collecting resources for other parts of the community that are working on the same issues.
Yes, we'd like to see this go right from children at birth. We want people to have access from birth all the way through, even the college kids that are in our communities. We want them to know, help them make healthy choices, help them get access to physical activity. In the high schools and the middle schools, they don't have recess and they don't have mandated physical time.
I know.
And we know from studies,
they have to move.
Right, they have to move 60 minutes a day, and we know it's not happening. And that's what's leading to the 30% increase in obesity.
You know what's sort of fascinating to me is that I'd say for the past decade we've been so focused on the achievement gap, but the focus has been almost entirely on literacy. And while I think literacy is important, there are all these other elements. So it's interesting, you're talking about physical activity, maybe I'm sure you talk about drinking enough water,
Right.
eating healthy foods. You know, when you talk about achievement, this is part of it, wouldn't you agree?
It's essential, and I think people are finally starting to realize, you know, the Growing Great Schools people who have been at this for several years are so thrilled that, you know, Michelle Obama is embracing this on a national level, and
getting some grief for it.
Right,
you know?
I know,
And
unfortunately.
it's so important.
It's so important because I think what people don't realize is if they put money toward this now, it will lessen the load later when they're having to pay for people with type 2 diabetes, children. You know, this generation is slated to live 5 years less than their parents.
Wow.
Which
Now,
is
there are probably
staggering.
people watching who didn't know about Growing Great Schools, even though you have incredible outreach. Do you have a website or a way that people can contact you if they want to get involved or get more
Yes, we
information?
have growinggreatschools.org, and that's
Just
where
like that
people-
one word.
Yes.
Okay.
And they can get in touch with us that way or email us at info@growinggreatschools.org. And we certainly believe so passionately that, and statistics show from the CDC on down that children do better in school if they're allowed to be physically active and if they have access to healthy food.
Yeah, and it was wonderful to see you at the Board of Education meeting, and I think why the Board of Education and the town so excited is they really see a way that our community can continue to move forward is through these kind of public-private partnerships. And it's incredible the amount of time and energy you've given, and I think it's very clear when you go to events that it's paying off and it's growing.
It's
And
exciting
You're going
to
to grow
see.
more great schools. So
We
thank you.
certainly hope so.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll check back in soon to see how it's going.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for being such a supporter of Growing Great Schools and for attending our great function.
Oh, for that butternut squash mac and cheese, I'd be anywhere. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the second half of the show. With me now is Bernie Pelletier from Solarize West Hartford. You've been an incredible community member, community volunteer, working on this initiative known as Solarize West Hartford. So a lot of people watching have maybe seen the signs, seen the flyers, and still aren't really sure what it is. So for our viewers, can you give an overview of what the effort is about, Solarize West Hartford?
Absolutely, Beth, and thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to people. Solarize West Hartford is a group buying activity. It's sponsored by the town of West Hartford in conjunction with the Clean Energy Finance Investment Authority of the state of Connecticut. And it really provides the residents of West Hartford with a unique opportunity to get solar. It brings a couple things to bear. First, we have already pre-vetted our installer contractor, which is CTEC, a local company based in Simsbury. It gives access to the state credit, which is 35%, up to 35%. It also gives access to the federal income tax credit, which is 30%. So,
wow.
And it also has a tiered pricing program. So what essentially CTEC says is the more people that join, the lower our fixed costs are, and so we pass those on to the consumer. So right now we started off in tier 1, and we're now in tier 4, and we're confident we're going to get to tier 5.
Wow.
Which takes essentially a couple $1,000s off the price of a typical system.
For everyone that gets a system?
For everyone that gets a system, including the people who went, the brave souls that went first. So it's good for all, and we pass that on.
Wow. So when you say that the community provider has been vetted, you mean the town and state picked that person, or how did that happen? How did the company get picked? If you could remind me of their name one more time.
It's CTEC,
CTEC.
CTEC Solar,
Okay.
C-Tech. And it starts off essentially with Sophia, which is the Clean Energy Finance Investment Authority, laying out a slate of solar contractors. And they do, I'll say it basic, but it's also substantial work of, do they have a good track record? Are
Got it.
past customers happy with them? Are they financially stable? Are their technical offerings up to snuff? And then the towns that are in this round of Solarize, this is round 3 of Solarize, essentially met down in Rocky Hill, and we sat through a series of, we essentially interviewed the contractors.
Wow.
And we tried to match up, obviously we're all looking for lower price. We're also looking, in our case in West Hartford, we wanted somebody who was local, because we're a big town, and we wanted to be sure that they would be able to support us from a public outreach standpoint, which is substantial. Just as an example, they've come to all of our events. They help us table. They had, I think, 5 or 6 people running in the mitten run this Sunday, this very cold Sunday. So they're right there, side by side with us, getting the word out.
So I came to the Solar Ambassadors program. How is that going? And explain to people what the Solar Ambassadors, or who they are in the town.
I love the term Solar
I do too,
Ambassador,
yeah.
and I try to impress people with it. So far, I've been unsuccessful in getting diplomatic immunity, but I'm working on that. Buying solar is not something you're going to do many times for most people in your life. And so what we started with was a base of people in West Hartford that had solar.
Okay.
And when we started the program, there were just about 50 installs in all of West Hartford. And so what a solar ambassador is many of those people were passionate about making the decision to buy solar, and they're passionate about saying, we would like to get other people to join us. And the value of that to a potential buyer of solar is you can have someone who has solar on their roof, and they'll say, come on over, you want to see my system, you want to hear my experience. What happens in the wintertime? Does the roof leak? Have you had any horror stories? Does it live up to the billing? All these things, the people are more than willing to have a prospective customer come and look and touch and feel the system. So I've had people come over to the house and look at my system.
That's great.
We've had people we have what we call solar tours. So a couple people have designated themselves as available to be on that tour. We participated in the national tour, and you can come and just essentially become familiar with it. So we view that as an added value to this program, is there's a lot of people sort of helping you through the wickets.
So like people who've been through it. So like you have a solar system. How do you like it? Do you recommend it to people? What are the advantages?
Well, I do like my solar system a lot. I wish I had gotten it through this program,
It would have
because
been cheaper.
I would have saved a lot of money. And I only got my system in May of this year. On several levels, I love my system. The obvious level is it's saving me money through. So my system came live on May 10th of this year, and my electric bill has been $16 a month since that time, including through
16?
16. There's a 1/6.
Wow.
And that 1/6 is essentially the cost of admission to the Connecticut Light and
To go
Power
on the grid.
which is an important point. Is the grid? This is what they call a grid intertie system. So you need to have a good grid, and you have to be a responsible player on the grid. So paying that $16 means we're carrying our fair share of maintaining that grid.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And I think out west that's been an issue. Some people essentially paid nothing, and that's probably not the right answer. So on a financial level, I like the fact that I'm essentially paying $16 a month. On an environmental level, and my system is small. The inverter, which is a device that sort of hooks it to the grid, keeps track of how much electricity has been produced. It also converts that into pounds of carbon dioxide avoided. So that's one of the big greenhouse gases. So it's kind of stunning. My little system has saved 5,300 pounds of carbon dioxide.
Wow.
Since I came live.
So you're saving money and you're helping the environment.
And I guess the other thing that I tell my wife is, even if I just sit in an armchair and drink a beer, I'm working.
Right.
I'm
You're making money.
producing kilowatts.
So what if you had a bigger system and you were creating more energy? Could you get money back from the system if you create enough?
The way this program works is that they really size it to your use.
So that's part of why you've picked a provider who can really be high quality and give you the right amount.
If you go over, it's what they call a net metering system. And so if at the end of 1 year's time you have produced more than you have consumed, you do get some money back, but it's essentially the wholesale generation rate.
Got it.
So if a kilowatt hour
Right.
costs 19 cents, you might get 4 cents back. So it's not a good financial investment to make more than you use.
Yeah.
Environmentally, I would have been willing to do that.
Absolutely.
Beth, I know that you have an electric car.
Yes.
I would have liked to have gone forward if my roof had been bigger and put more on so that I could essentially charge my electric car off of my roof.
That
But
would be cool.
That would be cool. That's one of my little pipe dreams there.
Yeah, I know there's actually a solar field in Plainville or Plainfield that charges electric cars. I have those of us I have an electric car that has zero emissions, and we try to find ways, not to emit anything. And so I have a friend who's found this field where he can charge his car on solar, and he's so excited. I can't direct people there, but I think one of the things about doing solar, having an electric car, is the more you do, the more you want to do. When you realize how you can help the environment and save money, it's like, I think we've driven 2,600 miles and it's cost us a total of like $25 so far, between various charging spaces available. So, but this is about solar energy, so you get excited when you do these things. I can get on my car like that because it's been such a surprise. But like the car, I think people are nervous to get into it, and I know that's why you have the ambassador. So talk to people about how it works. If they call up Solarize and they want to get a bid, how does it work, and how do they know it's a good or bad investment? What gives them that security?
Start of the process is to contact the installer, CTEC, and have them come out and essentially look at your roof. And there are many people for whom it won't work. There are some roofs that are not ideal based on the orientation. You want to basically be south facing. If you have giant trees that are shading it, then you're simply not going to get enough photons hitting your roof to make it worth the financial investment. But if you have a good roof, they'll tell you, and what they'll essentially do is lay out a financial pro forma for you. And you as the buyer or the leaser can look at the economics of this and say, is it worth it? In my case, I bought my system outright because I was more driven by the desire for environmental issues. But not everybody is so fortunate to just focus on that. There are two modes of financing. You can buy it and essentially finance the debt. And what you find is that essentially the savings on your electricity bill can pretty much offset, if not totally offset, the cost of financing this thing. And the beauty of that is that, say, in 10 or so years when you've paid it off, then for the next 15 years,
Right.
your electricity is free.
Virtually free, right? Wow.
If you want to go the leasing route, essentially somebody else goes through the trouble of owning the system, and they sell you costs, instead of paying 19 cents a kilowatt hour, they'll sell you your electricity at a little bit less. And there you're essentially saving the environment because you're producing your own electricity. Somebody else is producing electricity on your behalf and you're buying it from them. And that's a fixed cost, very fixed and determined.
So people can have it really either way. They can
Yep.
be exactly sure what it's going to cost, or they can, sort of go out there on their own, but know that the investment's going to pay off in 8, 10, 12 years, depending on the size of the system and the savings each month.
Exactly that.
Well, it seems like it's been a big success. I hope you continue to get more people interested and we get to tier 5. What's the top tier?
Tier 5 is the top tier.
Oh, so we're approaching that.
We're approaching that. So far, we've had over 200 people express interest in this. We've had 18 contracts signed up. We've had
Great.
100 site visits and a lot more on the way.
Well, this is good for our air and good for our pocketbook. So thank you so much for joining me, Bernie.
Thank you very much, Beth.